This is a story from my life, something that happened a few years ago. It's hard to talk about, but I think it's important to share, because it shows how quickly the people you're supposed to trust the most can become strangers. The first hint that my life was about to implode came not with a bang, but with a quiet, sickening lurch in my gut as I stared at my laptop screen. The numbers on the American Express statement glowed with malevolent indifference. $9,247.50. The charge was from a company called Exquisite Escapes Travel, a name that sounded like a parody of luxury. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. I was gathered at my small IKEA desk in my Austin apartment for the express purpose of paying down my credit card debt, of moving one small step closer to the dream of a condo down payment. Instead, I saw a charge that was more than my entire life's savings. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed on the desk beside me, a cheerful, oblivious chime. It was an Instagram notification, and when I saw the photo my sister Jessica had just posted, the blood in my veins turned to ice. There she was, champagne flute in hand, clinking glasses with her smirking boyfriend on a pristine white balcony overlooking the impossible blue of the Aegean Sea. Her caption read, "Surprise getaway. Best boyfriend ever. The blessed price luxury travel, time Santorini." If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel, tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. My world narrowed to the two glowing screens in front of me, one displaying my financial ruin, the other broadcasting the reason for it. $9,000, Santorini, my sister. The pieces didn't just click into place. They slammed together with the force of a car crash. My mind, struggling to catch up, flashed through a dozen impossible scenarios. A mistake? A stolen card? Hacked account? But I knew. Deep down, in that place where ugly family truths reside, I knew. Jessica had my card information saved on her laptop. I'd helped her buy a plane ticket home for Christmas last year, a simple act of sisterly convenience that had just become the weapon used to gut my future. My fingers, trembling, dialed her number. It went straight to voicemail, a bubbly, pre-recorded message about living her best life. I sent a text, my thumbs jabbing at the screen. "Jessica, call me right now. We need to talk about my credit card." Minutes crawled by. The cursor on my banking screen blinked, a tiny rhythmic mockery of my panic. Finally, a reply notification popped up. I snatched the phone. It was a message from Jessica, dripping with the casual dismissiveness she had perfected into an art form. "OMG, chill, can't talk, soaking up the sun? It was an emergency. I'll pay you back." Well, an emergency. A $9,000 vacation to a Greek island was an emergency. The condescending little kissy face emoji at the end felt like a slap. I could picture her perfectly, tanning on a lounge chair, oversized sunglasses hiding her eyes, annoyed that her older, more boring sister was bothering her with something as trivial as grand larceny. The rage was so pure, so potent, it almost choked me. My next call was to my parents. They were my fail-safe, the ultimate court of appeals in our family. They would be horrified. They would fix this. "Mom?" I said, my voice cracking. "Something's happened." I explained the charge, the Instagram post, the text message. I laid out the facts, the cold, hard numbers that were currently setting my financial stability on fire. I expected shock, anger on my behalf, a promise to get to the bottom of it. What I got was a heavy sigh. "Oh, Chloe," my mother said, and the weariness in her voice was not for me, but for the drama I was creating. "You know how Jessica is. She's just impulsive." "Impulsive?" I repeated, the words sounding absurd. "Mom, this is $9,000. This is my condo money. This is felony-level theft." "Don't be so dramatic," she chided gently. "She said she'd pay you back. Let's not ruin her vacation over this. She's been under so much stress at work. You're the responsible one, honey. You can handle it for now. We'll talk to her when she gets back. We don't want to cause a big family rift over a little money." A little money. The words hung in the air between us. My father got on the line and echoed the sentiment. "Just let it go for now, sweetie. Your sister has a hard time. Be the bigger person. Be the bigger person." The 4 words my parents had used my entire life to excuse Jessica's behavior and enforce my role as the family shock absorber. I was the one who had to be mature, to understand, to forgive, to absorb the impact of Hurricane Jessica. I hung up the phone not with a slam, but with a quiet click. I felt utterly, terrifyingly alone. They weren't just excusing her. They were enabling her. They were asking me to set myself on fire to keep her warm. The betrayal from my sister was a knife wound, sharp and deep. But the betrayal from my parents was a slow-acting poison, spreading through my veins, chilling me to the bone. They had chosen their side, and I was not on it. The week Jessica was gone was the longest of my life. I couldn't sleep. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, my heart pounding, the number $9,247.58 burned into the back of my eyelids. I called American Express, but without officially declaring the charge as fraud and naming the perpetrator, their hands were tied. "Is it possible a family member used the card, ma'am?" the polite customer service agent asked. I choked on the words, unable to say them out loud. Not yet. To do so felt like pushing a button on a nuclear bomb. I knew it would vaporize my family, and a stupid, hopeful part of me still thought there was a way to fix this. That Jessica would come home, see the panic in my eyes, and somehow, miraculously, produce a check for the full amount. I spent my evenings hunched over my laptop, not just staring at the hole in my finances, but digging. If this was a crime scene, I was going to be my own detective. I pulled up months of old credit card statements, my eyes scanning for anything out of the ordinary. And I found it. It wasn't a single, glaring charge, but a slow, insidious bleed. $100 here at a boutique called Velvet Hanger that Jessica loved. $50 there for a DoorDash order I never made, delivered to an address suspiciously close to her apartment in the trendy South Congress district. $200 for a spa treatment at the W Hotel. It was a pattern of casual, entitled theft, small enough that I, in my busy, trusting ignorance, had overlooked them. She hadn't just committed one grand act of betrayal. She had been treating my credit card like her own personal slush fund for months. She'd been testing the waters, seeing what she could get away with. The Santorini trip wasn't an impulse. It was an escalation. The pieces of her life, the one she curated so perfectly on social media, started to look different. I thought about how she'd been complaining about work. She was a marketing strategist at Innovate Creative, one of the most prestigious agencies in Austin. It was a glamorous, client-facing role that she was perfect for, all charisma and dazzling smiles. But I remembered a tearful phone call a month ago where she'd been crying about being unappreciated and getting passed over for a senior position. I called a mutual friend, Sarah, who also worked in the marketing world. I kept my questions vague, just asking how Jessica was doing. "Oh, you know Jess," Sarah said. "Living the high life. I don't know how she does it. She was super bummed about not getting that senior strategist role, but then a week later she's posting about a spontaneous trip to Greece. Her boyfriend must be loaded." The pieces clicked into place. The boyfriend wasn't loaded. He was a part-time musician who lived in a garage apartment. He hadn't paid for the trip. Jessica had, using my money to project an image of effortless success and luxury to mask her professional disappointment. She wasn't just stealing my money. She was stealing it to build a life that was a lie. The discovery didn't bring clarity so much as a deep, profound sickness. This wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated, selfish campaign waged by my own sister, designed to prop up her fragile ego at the expense of my entire future. The person I thought I knew, my silly, sometimes thoughtless little sister, didn't exist. In her place was a stranger, a cold, manipulative fraud who saw me not as family, but as a resource to be exploited. When she finally returned, she walked into our parents' house for Sunday dinner as if she'd just come back from a weekend at the lake. She was glowing, her skin tanned to a perfect bronze, and she carried expensive-looking gift bags for our parents, a bottle of aged scotch for my dad, a silk scarf from a designer I couldn't pronounce for my mom. Paid for with my money, I thought, my stomach twisting. She hugged me, a light, airy embrace that felt like an insult. "Hey, sis, I brought you something," she said, handing me a small, cheap box of Turkish delight. The gesture was so transparently inadequate it was almost comical. The family dinner was a masterclass in gaslighting. Jessica, under the gentle prompting of my mother, launched into her apology. She sat opposite me at the dining table, her eyes welling up with perfectly timed tears. "Chloe, I am so sorry," she began, her voice thick with manufactured emotion. "I know I should have asked. It was a stupid thing to do. I was in a really dark place. Things at work have been so hard, and Mark and I had a huge fight, and I just felt like I was drowning. I saw a last-minute deal for the trip, and I just booked it. It was a moment of insanity." She looked at Our parents, who were nodding with sympathetic, sorrowful expressions. I was going to tell you, I swear. I will pay you back every single penny. I just need a little time to get back on my feet. She played her part perfectly. The damsel in distress, the overwhelmed young woman who made a silly mistake under pressure. I watched, my food untouched on my plate, as my parents rushed to comfort her. Of course you will, sweetie, my mother cooed, reaching across the table to pat her hand. We know you didn't mean any harm. My father cleared his throat, fixing me with a stern look. Chloe, she's apologized. Let's not drag this out. She made a mistake, and she's going to fix it. I just stared at her, at the tears that never quite fell, at the practiced tremor in her voice. How are you going to pay me back, Jessica? I asked, my voice flat and cold. You were just complaining about being broke a month ago. How are you going to suddenly come up with $9,000? Jessica's face hardened for a split second before the mask of contrition slipped back on. I'll get a second job. I'll figure it out. Why do you have to be so aggressive about this? It's like you care more about the money than about me. And there it was, the classic Jessica pivot. Suddenly, I was the villain. I was the cold, heartless older sister, obsessed with money, bullying my fragile, remorseful sibling who had just made a tiny little oopsie. My mother jumped in. Chloe, that's enough. Your sister is trying. Family is more important than money. We will not have you making her feel terrible in this house. I looked around the table. 3 pairs of eyes were on me, a united front of disappointment and judgment. They had already tried and convicted me. My crime wasn't having my life savings stolen. It was my refusal to smile and pretend it didn't happen. In that moment, surrounded by the 3 people who were supposed to be my safe harbor, I had never felt more like an outsider. Jessica's power wasn't financial or physical. It was emotional. She controlled the family narrative, and in her story, she was always the princess in the tower, and I was the dragon guarding a meaningless pile of gold. I drove home from that dinner in a state of chilling clarity. My mother's words echoed in my head, a relentless, punishing loop. Family is more important than money. It was the mantra of my childhood, the justification for every time I had to give up something I wanted for Jessica. Every time her drama eclipsed my quiet achievements, every time my needs were deferred for her wants. They thought money wasn't important. My money, which I had earned through countless hours of overtime, meticulous budgeting, and saying no to 1,000 small pleasures so I could say yes to a future with some semblance of security. My money, which represented my independence, my hard work, my dream of owning a home. I thought of Jessica's crocodile tears, her breezy dismissal of the catastrophic damage she had inflicted on my life. My credit score, which I had painstakingly built since I was 18, had plummeted by over 100 points. The pre-approval letter for my mortgage was now worthless. My emergency fund was gone, spent on the minimum payment for a debt I hadn't incurred. She hadn't just taken a vacation. She had stolen a significant piece of my future, and she felt absolutely no remorse. She felt entitled to it. And my parents, my own parents, had co-signed the theft with their silence and their support. They had held the emotional getaway car for her. I was driving down South Lamar, the neon signs of Austin's restaurants and bars blurring past my window, when a tidal wave of rage, cold and pure, washed over me. It was so intense I had to pull over into the parking lot of a closed-down diner. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, and for the first time, I didn't cry tears of sadness or frustration. I cried tears of anger. Hot, cleansing tears. They believed I was the problem. They thought I was cold, unforgiving, money-obsessed. Fine. They had no idea what I was capable of. I had spent my entire life playing by the rules. The family rules, the financial rules, the societal rules. I was the good daughter, the responsible sister, the reliable employee. And what had it gotten me? An empty bank account, a ruined credit score, and a family that treated me like an ATM with feelings they could occasionally afford to hurt. Jessica had broken all the rules and was being rewarded with sympathy and protection. She treated this like a transaction with a stranger, expecting the familial equivalent of a no-interest loan with an infinite payback period. I looked at my reflection in the dark rearview mirror, my face streaked with tears but my eyes hard as stone. A decision crystallized in my mind, not born of heat, but of ice. Okay, I whispered to the empty car. A stranger it is. My parents wanted me to be the bigger person. But I was done being big enough to absorb everyone else's sins. I was done setting myself on fire. From now on, I was going to be the fire. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. A strange sense of calm settled over me. I made coffee, sat down at my desk, and opened my laptop. The 921-4758 was still there, a digital scar. I picked up the phone and dialed the number on the back of my American Express card. When the agent answered, my voice was steady, my words measured. "Hello," I said. "I need to report a fraudulent charge on my account." I gave her the details, the amount, the date, the merchant name. She asked the standard questions. "Do you have the card in your possession?" "Yes, I do." "Have you shared your card information with anyone?" There was a pause. The moment of truth. The point of no return. I took a deep, deliberate breath. "Yes, I believe my sister Jessica Miller used my card information without my authorization." The agent's tone shifted, became more serious. "I understand. For a charge of this amount, the next step in the investigation process is for you to file a police report, ma'am. We'll need the report number to proceed with the chargeback." "I understand," I said. "I'll do it today." I hung up and immediately called the Austin Police Department's non-emergency line. I filed the report, my voice a monotone as I recounted the facts, leaving out all the emotion, all the family drama. It was just dates, amounts, names, a simple, clean transaction of information. To the officer on the phone, I was just another victim of credit card fraud. I felt a strange detachment, as if I were orchestrating events for a character in a story. This wasn't about hurting my sister anymore. This was about consequences. It was about rebalancing the scales that had been tipped in her favor for our entire lives. 2 days later, the bomb detonated. The call came from my mother. She wasn't crying. She was screaming. "A police detective just called Jessica. A detective, Chloe. What did you do?" "I did what I had to do," I said calmly, standing in the middle of my living room. "She committed a felony." I reported it. "She's your sister. You're trying to send your own sister to jail over money. We raised you to be better than this. You are tearing this family apart." "No, Mom," I said, and the coldness in my own voice surprised me. "Jessica tore this family apart when she stole from me. You tore it apart when you chose to protect her instead of me. This is just the fallout." I hung up before she could respond. The calls and texts kept coming from my father, from my aunt, a storm of guilt and fury. I silenced my phone and ignored them all. They had built this world where Jessica was untouchable. I was just the force of nature that was going to prove them wrong. In the midst of this familial war, something completely unexpected happened. A message appeared in my LinkedIn inbox. It was from a recruiter at a high-end headhunting firm. "Hi, Chloe," it read. "I came across your profile and was incredibly impressed with your analytics work for your current company. A confidential opportunity has opened up for a senior marketing strategist at a leading creative agency here in Austin, and I think your background would be a perfect fit. Would you be open to a brief chat?" My heart skipped a beat. Senior marketing strategist. It was a huge leap forward, the kind of role I assumed was still years away. I agreed to the call, my curiosity piqued. We spoke the next afternoon. The recruiter, a woman named Maria, was sharp and professional. She described the role: managing high-value client accounts, leading a team of junior analysts, developing data-driven creative campaigns. It was my dream job. Then she told me the name of the company. The agency is Innovate Creative. I almost dropped my phone. Innovate Creative, Jessica's firm. A cold electric thrill shot through me. I asked, as casually as I could, if she could tell me anything about the team or why the position was open. "Well," Maria said, lowering her voice slightly, "this is confidential, but the role became available rather suddenly. They're looking for a change in direction for the team. They need someone with real analytical rigor, someone who is less about, let's call it flash, and more about substance and integrity. The last person in the role, while charismatic, apparently had some issues with accountability." I felt a slow, wicked smile spread across my face. She was talking about the promotion Jessica was passed over for. They hadn't filled the role. They were still looking. They were looking for the anti-Jessica, and she had just found me. A plan, audacious and brilliant, began to form in my mind, a perfectly designed structure of revenge. This wasn't just about getting my money back anymore. This was about taking back my life, my career, my power. I told Maria I was very interested. That night I didn't sleep. But this time it wasn't from anxiety. It was from adrenaline. I dove into preparing for the interview with a singular, ferocious focus. I used every bit of information Jessica had ever casually dropped about her company over the years. The clients she worked with, the software they used, the name of her boss, a man named David Chen, the head of strategy. She had bragged for years, inadvertently providing me with the reconnaissance I needed to build my Trojan horse. I tailored my portfolio meticulously, highlighting the projects that showcased the exact skills Maria had mentioned: data-driven results, analytical rigor, integrity. I was everything Jessica wasn't. She was the dazzling presentation. I was the unshakable data that backed it up. She was the promise. I was the proof. The interview process was a whirlwind of 3 meetings over 5 days. I met with David Chen, a sharp, no-nonsense man who seemed impressed by my methodical approach. I met with the creative director and the head of accounts. In each meeting, I was cool, confident, and prepared. I didn't just answer their questions. I anticipated them. I presented a case study on one of their existing clients, showing them how I would optimize their current strategy, pointing out holes in their data collection that I was uniquely skilled to fix. On the Friday of that week, as I was leaving my office, an email popped up on my phone. The subject line was, "Offer of employment, Innovate Creative." I opened it, my hands shaking. They were offering me the position. Senior marketing strategist. The salary was 30% higher than my current one. It included a corner office, a significant bonus structure, and a team to lead. It was everything I had ever wanted. At almost the exact same moment, another email arrived. This one was from American Express. Subject: Your recent fraud claim. I opened it. "Dear Ms. Miller," it began. "Following our investigation, we have concluded that the charge of $9,247.58 was indeed fraudulent. The charge has been reversed and credited back to your account. We have closed the case on our end." I leaned against the wall of my office building, the concrete cool against my back. The $9,000 was gone from my account. The job offer was glowing on my phone. It was all happening. The scales were not just rebalancing. They were crashing down on the other side with breathtaking force. The final act didn't play out in a dramatic confrontation or a tearful family intervention. It happened quietly, efficiently, and with the cold, impersonal brutality of corporate and legal machinery, which was so much more satisfying. The bank's fraud department, having settled the matter with me, turned their attention to Jessica. They were now the ones out $9,000, and they were not in the business of forgiveness. They pursued the debt from her directly, a debt she had no means to pay. But the real blow came from the police report. While it was unlikely she would face jail time as a first-time offender, the charge itself, felony credit card fraud, was now a permanent part of her record. It was a public document, a bright red flag for any background check. Innovate Creative, like most major corporations handling multi-million-dollar client accounts, conducted routine background checks on its employees, especially those in client-facing roles. Jessica's crime wasn't just a personal failing, it was a professional liability. A week after I accepted the job offer, my new boss, David Chen, called me to discuss my start date. After we'd settled on the logistics, he paused. "Chloe," he said, his tone carefully neutral, "I feel I should mention something, just for the sake of transparency. We had to let a member of the team go this week. Her name was Jessica Miller. I know it's a common name, but on the off chance you knew her, I wanted you to be aware." "I know the name," I said, my voice perfectly level. "And what was the reason?" "It came to light during a standard background check that she had an unresolved legal issue involving financial fraud. We can't have someone with that kind of judgment handling our clients' budgets. We terminated her employment immediately. To be honest, it confirmed some concerns we already had. We're looking for a change, someone with real integrity. We're thrilled to have you on board." The call I had been waiting for came that evening. It was Jessica. Her voice was unrecognizable, a ragged, hysterical shriek. "They fired me," she screamed into the phone. "They fired me because of you. You ruined my life. You took my job." I walked over to my window and looked out at the Austin skyline, the lights twinkling like fallen stars. I felt a profound, almost unnerving calm. "I didn't take your job, Jessica," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I was offered a position you weren't good enough to get. I earned it. They told me why." She sobbed. "It was the police report. You did this to me. Over a stupid vacation." A stupid vacation. Even now, after everything, that's all it was to her. A trifle. an inconvenience. The sheer, breathtaking arrogance of it was what sealed the last bit of sympathy I might have had for her. "It wasn't a stupid vacation, Jessica," I said, the words as sharp and precise as a surgeon's scalpel. "It was grand larceny. You committed a felony. You got caught. You lost your job because you proved you couldn't be trusted with money. Your own or anyone else's. These are just consequences." There was a choked sound on the other end of the line, a mix of a gasp and a sob. "My life is over," she whispered. "No," I replied, the coldness in my voice absolute. "Your free ride is over. There's a difference." I paused, letting the silence stretch. "Consider my new salary a down payment on the emotional damage. The rest is interest." Then I hung up, and for the first time in my life, I blocked her number. My relationship with my parents fractured, perhaps irreparably. They see me as a cold, vengeful monster who destroyed her sister's life. They couldn't or wouldn't see that I was merely the instrument of a destruction Jessica had authored herself. She moved back into her childhood bedroom in their house, a disgraced 30-year-old with a criminal record and no job prospects in the industry she loved. They were now responsible for her truly and completely. The golden child returned to her cage. I, on the other hand, thrived. My new office at Innovate Creative was on the 22nd floor, a glass-walled corner space with a panoramic view of the city. I excelled at the work. My data-driven, no-nonsense approach was exactly what the clients and my boss wanted. I rebuilt my savings with a speed that startled me, opened a new investment account, and 6 months later, I was pre-approved for a mortgage again, this time for a much nicer condo in a better neighborhood. Sometimes I stand at my office window, sipping my morning coffee, and I look out at the sprawling city. I think about my sister, trapped in the suburban house she couldn't wait to escape, living the life she forced upon herself. She wanted the life of luxury without the work, the applause without the performance. I was the one who was supposed to be the bigger person, to absorb the cost of her dreams. My parents always told me to be the bigger person, so I did. I got a bigger salary, a bigger office, and a bigger future, all by myself. The end.